In today's video, I want to talk to you about why you need to stay true to yourself. Now, although that's important, first of all, it's important to find out how you can be true to yourself. And before I start that, I want to tell you two little stories from growing up that may not feel as though they've got much significance to this, but I feel it certainly has. The first one comes from when I was about 6 years old, and my parents had an amusement arcade on the seafront in a Somerset town, and I was on the beach playing with my bucket and spade, as you do. And what happened was a bigger boy came and took it off me and punched me and ran off with it. So I went back to my dad crying about it, and my dad said to me something that stuck with me ever since then, to be honest. And he said, "It's no good you coming crying to me. You're not always going to have me by your side to sort things out for you. And you need to go back on the beach, go and find this boy and get your bucket and spade back." So I said, "But I was saying to him, really, Dad, he's bigger than me." He said, "Well, then if he doesn't give it you back, hit him and then take it." Now, I was very fearful about doing that. After all, I was only 6 and he was 8. He was probably twice the size of me. But I went down there. My dad followed me down, I noticed. And I went back to the boy, and he was digging a hole in the sand. And I said, "I want my bucket and spade back." And he went, "You can't have it. I've got it now." So I jumped in the hole, punched him, and all of a sudden this little fight went on. And being much bigger than me, he was winning. After what seemed like a lifetime, it was probably just a few seconds, my dad stepped in, we got the bucket and spade, and we came back. And that was a lesson for me that I learned that day. But I didn't learn it well enough, because when I was about 13, maybe 14, I don't know precisely, I was at boarding school. And coming from a fairground background, I kind of got picked on a fair bit. I was a bit of an outsider. I don't know what kind of started it, but I was in a chemistry lesson, and one of the other boys was from Gibraltar, and his name was Brian Morello, and he was the biggest and the toughest boy in our group. He was saying something to me, and I didn't like it, and I went, "I'll fight you in the gully at 4 o'clock. Now, I was little and he was bigger than me again. So as time went on that day, the day seemed so long, and I was a coward. I didn't really want to go. But I knew that I had to. I knew that I had to get some sort of reputation. After all, I was sick of getting bullied, and this was a chance for me to fight my way out of it. But the problem was with that is Brian was a lot stronger than me. So we're in a thing called the gully, and it was like an area of grass away from the school. And word had got round, and there were probably 30 or 40 boys waiting for us as we got there. Anyway, I got there, and Brian was already there. So I kind of tentatively stepped into the thing. I'm not actually sure if I ever got the chance to punch him, because he beat me up. There's no doubt in it. I kept getting up, and he kept punching me and knocking me down. And I can remember him saying, "Have you had enough yet?" And I was like, no. And I'd get up and try and hit him, but I just wasn't very good at it. And in the end, he said, "Look, this isn't enough. That's enough." But he said to me, "I've got to say, I respect you for coming, because I didn't think you would." And it was a changing day, because after that, nobody picked on me anymore. And it was a bit changing, but I learned two things from that. The first, of course, is that I'm not very good at fighting. And the second is sometimes we all make mistakes. And my mistake was telling him to meet me in the gully. But the thing is, sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone in order to be true to yourself. I knew that I was getting picked on, and I didn't like it, and this was an occasion to change things, and it did. But here's the thing that I've noticed since then. People will tell you that you're not good enough for lots of things. I knew I wasn't a good enough fighter. But sometimes you have to kind of just go with it and be strong enough to have your own mind. The other thing, of course, is that as a kid, there's a load of peer pressure. And so people that were bullying me weren't necessarily bullies, but they felt drawn to it because of the people that were around them. And so you've got that peer pressure thing, and that doesn't change as you get older. There's always peer pressure. And sometimes, when you know you're right, it's your place to stand your ground and not let any of the other people turn you. Even if there's loads of them. And what that caused me to do years and years ago was to get like this cloak that I wrap around myself, like a chink of armour. And it enabled me to be someone else, a bit tougher than I was. And that's all well and good, because you're actually not being yourself, and you're not being true to yourself. Other people's opinions, we hear them all the time, and people are telling us this stuff, and we take it on board so often. And what other people think of us isn't always who we are. And so one of the key things to staying true to yourself is actually knowing who you are. And that takes some work. You have to look deep inside yourself. It sometimes doesn't come to you for a long, long time. We know the mistakes of our lives. We know the things that we're weak at. But sometimes you have to trust yourself, know who you are, and accept who you are. And when you do that, you don't necessarily have to put that cloak on and pretend to be someone else. Because once you know who you are, and once you accept who you are, you're well on the way to being true to yourself and being the true you that you are. And you have to accept who you are. You have to accept your limitations. But as well as that, they're the things that we all know. You have to accept that you have loads of good things about you as well. And when you realise who you are, you can then take that cloak off and actually be vulnerable. You can be who you really are. You can tell the stories of your life. You can talk to people and talk about the fact that you feel like an outsider, that you don't feel the strongest person in the world. You don't have to be Mr. or Mrs. I'm good at everything. When you know who you are, you can be who you are. You can stick up for what you think is right. You don't have to always bend in the wind because everybody else is telling you. And what helps you with that is if you start to surround yourself with people that like you when you stand up for yourself. I've talked about this many times. I talk about the tribe and the people that will be with you through good times and bad. And if there's one thing I learned about that fight in the gully when I was 13 or 14, was that a lot of people suddenly wanted to be my friend because I stood up for myself and showed that I wasn't scared. And people like that. They'd see it. People started to want to get to know me and know who the real person was. But of course, at 13 and 14 with kids, and we really don't know who the real person is. And so there's a lot that we have to learn along the way. For me, being true to yourself is one of the joys of life. Once you find out who you are and you stop lying to yourself, because I did that for ages. Once you stop lying to yourself and you start to be who you really are, you will find that you'll get more respect. I knew that I never had respect growing up, partly because of the background that I come from, and partly because I didn't want people to know who I was. And that sounds silly, doesn't it? But that's how it was for me. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that at some stage you've been through the same things that I have. Not fighting, obviously. Bending to be somebody that you're really not. Doing things that you don't really want to do. But when you're true to yourself, wow, that's such a good feeling. I've found that more people are interested in who I am since I myself become aware of who I am and actually started living that kind of life. There's a lot to be said for knowing who you are, for being true to yourself, for accepting that you're not the best at lots of things. I know I'm not the best at lots of things, but I do know who I am. And that took me, I've said this before as well, if you've watched my other videos, I was at least 55 before I felt comfortable in my skin. If you get to that stage at a younger age, that is absolutely brilliant, because you can take your life forward. I'm now 64. The last 9 years or so have been the best of my life. Since I've decided who I am, I know who I am. I don't bow to pressure from other people. I can say no when I want to. And knowing that I'm being true to myself. And when you're true to yourself, wow, life becomes so much better. It becomes so much easier, to be honest, because you don't have those doubts. You know where you are in life. You know where you stand. Once you know who you are, and once you start to be true to yourself and live to your standards, to your ethics, to your morals, then your life will be so much better. I hope that by telling you this, it will make you realise that, one, you're probably better than I ever was, and two, that once you take control of your own life, being who you are, it's just one of the best things. When you know who you are, when you drop the pretense, when you show your strengths, when you show your weaknesses, and when you don't care what people think, that is absolutely freeing. If you've got any comments to make, please leave them down there. There's something nice about hearing other people's stories. It helps build a community. What you've got to say, your comments, could help someone else far more than me. So put any comments you've got down below. If you're with us for the first time, welcome along. Check out a few more of the other videos. You might find there's something there that you like. And if you click up there, I'm going to find some video that I think will be helpful to you. So I'll see you next time.